Hi, I'm Christine Tulley, Senior Writing Coach for Defend and Publish, and welcome to episode 34, Write the First Week of Class. One of the strategies that I have really pushed with new faculty that I've been working with on my campus is to think about that first week of the semester once we start teaching as an opportune time to write. And new faculty will often push back on this a little bit and say, well, I really can't write. I'm still, preparing for my classes, or I'm finding where my classes are. Or in the case of new faculty, getting acclimated to the university and figuring out the protocols. And, there's certainly all the built-in excitement and sometimes nervousness for faculty in terms of starting classes and just, getting to know your new students and figuring out how everything's going to work. New semesters are different because they're new, it's new every time. The other problem with this particular semester is that, certainly we're operating in the middle of a pandemic. So in a few weeks from now, we don't know how anything is going to be really during this semester. And for many of us, how classes are delivered is a little bit uncertain. We might have to be flexible in figuring out how we're going to work with our students, how we're going to convey information, how are we going to work with face-to-face students and online students, and sometimes at the same time. So there's a lot happening, no matter whether you're teaching online, face-to-face, or anywhere else. And so I want to make this recommendation to write the first week of class for several reasons, and then I want to offer a couple of strategies for doing that. So one of the reasons we want to do it primarily is because sometimes these first weeks of class are the most empty weeks of class in terms of student grading and student responsibility. So you haven't yet assigned an exam or given students a paper. So that means you're not necessarily grading or answering student questions yet about that. You might be answering questions about other things, but probably not about grades yet. And so there tends to be this nice window to start the semester where you're still in the mode where you're conveying information to your students. They might be doing some activities, and there might be some small things that you're grading, but usually the larger big projects are not assigned in week 1 or week 2. So you do get a little bit of time there. It's a prime opportunity to start writing. The second reason we might want to start writing the very first week of the semester, and hopefully even the first day of the semester, is because this is the time to solidify your own writing schedule. We've done several episodes about writing habits and getting those ingrained prior to starting the semester, because once you start the semester and try to figure out what your writing habits are, it's a little bit like playing catch up. You don't really have the habits there, so you have to sort of figure out what works in the moment. And starting the very first week of the semester allows you the chance to kind of test out how you can write around your classes and get your own writing and your projects done without having all the pressures of grading and the buildup of, say, all the other service obligations or meetings or things in the middle of the semester that might happen. You might have some opening meetings and things, but in general, these 2 weeks tend to be a little bit emptier. So you get to take advantage of that natural play with that scheduling to figure that out. So those are 2 reasons. A third reason I would argue is that at the beginning of the semester, for many people, not for everyone, but for many people, students included, it tends to be exciting. It's kind of the start of a new semester. Nothing's gone wrong yet. You're able to take advantage of that natural energy and starting. And so it's also a great time to kick in your writing for that reason, because not only is it a new start for your students in the classes and you as a teacher, but also you as a researcher at this particular moment in time. So it really, even if your writing hasn't been going so well, that natural restart of the school year provides that burst of energy that might be something that you can build on and work productively. So I want to offer a couple of strategies for thinking about how you might get some writing done once your semester starts. I know we all start at different times, but one of the times in the US that semesters start is before Labor Day. And I know that we have some international listeners where Labor Day might not ring a bell for the time of year that it is, but it tends to fall in the first weekend of September. It's usually the first Monday in September. And so there's sort of that time where the semester starts before Labor Day, but then a lot of faculty kind of hold and work after Labor Day because it also marks an end of summer, a cultural end of summer in the US. So one of the ways to work towards using this natural energy and trying to think about writing the first week of class, no matter when it starts, if it's starting for you before Labor Day in the US, or I know for some of our United Kingdom listeners and listeners in other parts of the world, you might be starting in mid-September. But either way, what I would recommend is doing a couple of things to make sure that you're locking in your writing habits earlier rather than later in the semester after you've started working with your classes. So the first strategy I'm going to recommend, and I am going to share a screen for this one, although I will put the links in the show notes and I will tell those of you that are just listening on audio only what I'm looking at. I recently read a book this summer called 90 Days, 90 Ways, Inspiration, Tips, and Strategies for Academic Writers. This is by productivity expert Patricia Goodson. She's written some other books on academic writing. I like her work a lot. And what I liked about this book is it's actually set up with a weekly structure. So it has, here's something for you to look at on Monday. Here's something for you to look at on Tuesday. And it's just a very short one-page look at something about writing. Sometimes it's a quote to have you think about how that might work with your writing. Sometimes it's a strategy. It's really kind of an interesting book. So also at this particular moment on Amazon, not that I'm promoting it on Amazon, but it is on there for just $9.99. You can also get it on Kindle. So anybody that's looking for kind of a cheaper thing to kick off writing, it really is fairly cost effective. So I would encourage those of you to check that out. It's $9.99 in US dollars. In this book, one of the things that I like about it is that you could incorporate it into your writing routine in a way where you could just, when you're starting to write, you could open a page first and read prior to your writing session. So I sort of like that because it won't take very much time away from your writing, depending on how fast you read, maybe 15 or 20 minutes. But it will allow a re-entry into writing if you haven't been doing academic writing regularly. And because it's set up with that daily structure, whether you write daily or not, you could go right there. If you only write Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you could just open the Monday, Wednesday, Friday pages. But I'm thinking that this is a way that you could use this to start your writing session and feel like you're working into that scheduled rhythm to kick off the school year. I really liked it a lot. I think this is a great book for folks that just need something to start a writing session. And one of the things, or maybe the drawbacks with working during that first week of the semester, is that there's honestly a lot going on. It's hard to focus, right? We're all in different, if you're on a face-to-face campus, we're all in different classrooms, or those of you that are teaching online, it may be a tough shift from teaching online on Zoom then to go find a spot in your house to go quietly work on writing. I know I talked in episode 31 about easing into writing and having a transition. This book might be one of the ways that you can do it. It's certainly not the only one, but it is a good option, I think, if we're trying to figure out how you're going to start a writing session. Another strategy, let me stop sharing for a second. Another strategy that I like to do is the week before classes start, I like to block out my writing times for the semester, and even sooner sometimes than that, because meetings get dumped into our calendars all the time if we're on a university that uses a shared calendar. So one of the things that I try to do is block out my writing sessions and label them with a certain name. And this really serves a couple of purposes. The name that I personally use is something, I think it's called something like research meeting, I think is what I called it. Something that sounds official that people won't schedule over you. That I usually do that in that way because it really helps by allowing me to have Outlook sent reminders. So I'll get reminders on my phone, like my meeting is about to start, which is a reminder for me to stop whatever it is I'm doing and go, get ready to go over to my writing session. So I'll set a meeting time of 20 minutes before. So I remember to leave wherever I am on my physical campus and go to the library, or wherever I am in my house, take that 20 minutes to transition to be ready to start writing. So I like that a lot. It really helps me to make sure that I'm doing it. The other thing that I like about it is that during this first week, if you play with your scheduling with writing and you're teaching a little bit, is that you might find out that one class is going to require a little bit more of your time and energy, and maybe scheduling a writing session after that class isn't such a good idea. And you can move it somewhere else before that time gets taken up, or before you get into a habit or a rhythm that's tougher to break. So for example, if you're always getting a late start in the morning, it'll be tougher to put writing up there in the morning before your class if you've already been doing it a different way a couple of weeks into the semester. So those are a couple of ways that I would recommend thinking about starting that first week of the semester. And then as a final closing here, I just want to throw in just one call for trying to get some writing done in the very first day of class. I really like this idea that giving yourself the thought process that, when on days I'm teaching, I still can be writing. I know some faculty really like to split these two things. So they'll have teaching days and writing days. And I think, if that's the way that it works for you, that's great. But if at all possible, on that first day of class, if you're able to even do 20 minutes of writing or 15 minutes of writing, it does allow for that sense of satisfaction. And for those of you that are going to have to write on days when you teach, it shows that you can do it. You can give yourself a very short limit, and myself included. So what I put on that day is I normally like to write, an hour and a half at a time. But on a first day of teaching, I only slotted 30 minutes, and that's it. I'm going to just try to do what I normally do. Go to the library, do some writing for 30 minutes. I'll have a list of a couple of short tasks I can knock out and then be finished. And I know for me that it's just the psychological win of getting some writing done on a teaching day. So all of these things are things you want to think about in terms of how your teaching and your writing schedule is going to line up at the start of the semester. But I really make that argument to try to get some writing done that very first week of class, so you're not pushing it off till you're finished preparing for teaching, because we all know that our teaching and grading is going to fall on us at some point during the semester. So hopefully this tip helps, and we look forward to talking with you next week. Happy writing.